Welcome back, I'm that chemist, and today we're going to be deciding which household chemical is the best. So without further ado, let's get started. So believe it or not, there's a lot of different chemicals that are used in the household. Let's start with a simple one like acetic acid. Acetic acid, also known as vinegar, is a common household cleaning product. It can be useful for removing rust from some objects, but it's also used in cooking. Oftentimes vinegar has to be diluted so that it doesn't damage the surface that's being cleaned. So acetic acid is okay, but it has a fairly strong smell, and so that deters people from using it. So I think for that reason we can be a little bit harsher on it and put it into C tier. Now another common one is sodium bicarbonate, also known as baking soda. It can be used for cleaning lots of stuff around the house, and it also has a role in baking. Sodium bicarbonate is a nice mild base, so it could be preferable to some other bases depending on what your application is. Now another thing that I like about sodium bicarbonate is that it's used in the production of pretzels, and pretzels are awesome, so we can put this right into S tier. Now, ethanol is another S-tier chemical, whether you're using rubbing alcohol grade ethanol or if you're consuming drinking alcohol. Ethanol is an excellent chemical. Now, it's important to remind everybody to be responsible when they use ethanol. Ethanol can go right into S-tier, because ethanol is sometimes in certain types of soda, and if it's in soda, it has to go right into S-tier. Another ingredient in soda is water, right into S tier. I don't even have to tell you about how frequently water is used around the house. It just goes without saying, water is extremely useful, S tier. Now sodium chloride, it's okay. We need it for food, but beyond food, there's not too much else that you're using salt for at home. Maybe you're sterilizing a wound, maybe you're salting meat, but how many of us are actually salting meat at home? I don't think that there's that many. So sodium chloride's not super useful other than the fact that we need it in our food. So I think we could probably put it into like E tier. Now, sodium hypochlorite, bleach, it's great. It's a great way to clean stuff. However, it will also destroy metal, so you have to be a little bit careful. And people are always caught mixing bleach, sodium hypochlorite, with ammonia, and then they end up making trichloramine and chloramine. And there's plenty of people with stories about that. So while I think sodium hypochlorite is really useful because you can also bleach stuff with it, as its name implies, I think we could be a little bit harsher on this and probably put this into B tier. I really like sodium hypochlorite, and it's one of my cleaning products of choice. Ammonium hydroxide. Ammonium hydroxide is often used in toilet bowl cleaner, at least in Canada it is. I personally haven't found them to work that well, so I'm going to put it right into F tier. If you think ammonium hydroxide deserves more love, you can let me know down below. Sulfuric acid, drain cleaner. I have never personally used sulfuric acid as a drain cleaner. Most of the time when you get products in Canada, it's like sodium hydroxide based. Now in my mind, my main concern would be putting concentrated sulfuric acid down your drain, not being too good for your drain. It's a really useful reagent in a household context because it can unclog drains, which is often a dire situation. But if it doesn't unclog the drain, now you have a drain that's clogged and full of sulfuric acid. That is pretty dangerous. I'm going to put this into D tier. Beyond that use, there's not too many other uses in a household context where you'd be using sulfuric acid. Now acetone and ethyl acetate. Acetone is a great solvent. It's used in nail polish remover, but occasionally if you have something stained or if there's something that's stubborn and won't be easily removed, acetone can be really effective for that. We use it all the time in the lab for that same reason, but in a household context, you just need to be a little bit more careful because most of the time people don't have the appropriate equipment to put out a fire if they start one. So acetone's a little bit dangerous, but it's still pretty useful. I think acetone probably belongs in A tier. Now, ethyl acetate's another really useful one. Ethyl acetate has mostly replaced acetone as nail polish remover in Canada, at least in my experience. And similar to acetone, it's a good solvent. Now, the disadvantage with ethyl acetate is it isn't miscible with water. You can't very easily dilute its effect. So it's a little bit less useful in my mind, and I think we could probably put ethyl acetate into C tier. Now, carbon dioxide. You might not think of carbon dioxide as a household product, but quite often people have soda streams at home. Now, carbonated water is pretty important. It's in soda, right into S tier. Now, here's an interesting one you might not think of as a household chemical. Calcium sulfate dihydrate. I've just drawn it as calcium sulfate here. So all houses have drywall, and drywall is made of a mineral called gypsum. And it turns out that gypsum is actually calcium sulfate dihydrate. It's a core building material for houses. Easy S tier. Even though it's really messy and it's annoying when people punch holes in it. Lithium. Lithium's in batteries. We use a ton of lithium batteries because they're rechargeable. I think lithium has been one of the most useful metals worldwide because it's got a low atomic mass, and so you can get a little bit of lithium to go a really long way. Really useful for rechargeable batteries. I think lithium's got to be at least A tier, maybe even S tier. Now helium. Helium's in helium balloons. You can have birthday parties with helium, but it's getting a little bit expensive. Beyond helium balloons, there's not much else you can do other than have a really high-pitched voice. And I'm not encouraging you to do that, but I will say I've done it before, and it's quite amusing for people. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in E tier. Otherwise, it should probably be in F tier. Now, you might think, how can helium be in E tier, but we put ammonium hydroxide in F tier? Well, ammonium hydroxide won't give you a funny voice, but it might give you a funny voice if you're like choking to death on it. So that's not that funny. Citric acid, you might be surprised to see citric acid here because we're talking about household applications, not specifically food here. Aside from its tart taste, it's also used as a good cleaning agent because it can help remove stains. You see there's 3 carboxylic acid groups. Those are able to sequester metal ions, which can often be present in stains. So you can imagine something like rust. And so that's pretty effective. And so you occasionally see it in cleaning products. I personally haven't used citric acid that much in cleaning product, but because it's quite widely used, I think I can at least put it into B tier. Now, another really useful one is sulfamic acid. So sulfamic acid is useful because it can descale stuff. You can often form salts of sulfamic acid, and sulfamic acid can be really effective at removing scale, and this is why it's sometimes used in toilet bowl cleaners. Sulfamic acid is pretty useful as well in the removal of scales from mouth guards, for instance. It's quite often an ingredient in mouth guard cleaner. So sulfamic acid's pretty cool. It doesn't get as much attention as it should. We can put it into C tier. Now, hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is sometimes used in a household context. Hydrochloric acid can be useful in cleaning tiles, and it can also be used to remove rust. Now, if you leave hydrochloric acid in the presence of metal, it might rust the metal further, so you have to be a little bit careful, but it's still got some utility. I think people could tend to use this in a way that's overkill, and so it's not as useful as some of the other ones here. Additionally, it can react with stuff like bleach and make chlorine, which is not great. So I think hydrochloric acid can go into D tier. Formic acid. Similar to sulfamic acid, this can be used as a toilet bowl cleaner. It can be used for descaling, although it's not as common in products in Canada as far as I've seen at least. So it's not something I've commonly seen on the shelves, not that consumer products are labeled that well here. In fact, I've even found some household products, such as those containing Dawn soap, where they don't even list the ingredients on the back at all, which isn't even something that happens in the States, to my knowledge. So formic acid, it's somewhat useful. I don't think it's getting as much use as it could, and so we can put it into D tier. Now, butane. Butane's super useful. If you have a lighter, the fuel for most lighters tends to be butane. It's useful for starting fires, and starting fires is how we created civilization. That's pretty important. Butane can go right into S tier. Similar to butane, we have propane and propane accessories. Propane is another really useful one if you're running a barbecue. Barbecued meat is easily S tier. Propane is the S'est of S tiers for this episode. Another essential hydrocarbon here is methane in natural gas. If you have a natural gas stove or natural gas heating, this is like essential. Heating keeps us alive, easy S tier. Now, sodium hydroxide, another drain cleaner, but beyond that, doesn't have too many applications at home. I think sodium hydroxide belongs in the same tier as sulfuric acid because the only real application it has is as a drain cleaner. Now, most of the time when you buy sodium hydroxide pellets, they're not dissolved yet, although you can buy solutions of sodium hydroxide. So this makes it a little bit more challenging to dissolve, especially when you're just dumping it down the drain. So I think sodium hydroxide can go into D tier. So we have a few interesting ones left. Why don't we talk about urea? So other than being present in urine, urea is present in ice packs. This is one of the common chemicals that's found in ice packs. It can help the solution stay liquid at a lower temperature. So the cool thing about urea is when you have a cold pack, the water interacts with this chemical and it starts a reaction that lowers the temperature of the water to almost freezing. So the advantage of urea or other chemicals in ice packs is to lower the freezing point of water to an even lower temperature, so it can stay colder for longer. Urea is one of those ingredients, but beyond ice packs, it doesn't have too many uses at home. Occasionally, you do see urea in other consumer products such as hand soap, so it has a few other uses, and so for that reason, I think we can put it into E tier instead of putting it right into F tier. Sodium dichloroisocyanurate. I almost included trichloroisocyanuric acid, although the advantage of this one is clear. Here we only have 2 chlorines. This is just a way to slowly release chlorine. Now the advantage here is because this is a sodium salt, this is actually water soluble. So aside from the typical application you might expect in pool bleach, this can also be used as a disinfectant, and it's used as the active component of some dishwasher detergent. It's water soluble, it can be a solid that can be transferred easily without releasing too much chlorine. It's a pretty useful reagent, and keeping your dishes clean is pretty crucial, because sometimes those dishes are glasses, and sometimes those glasses hold soda. This can go right into A tier, because it's related to soda. A tier list like this might get you thinking about the safety of your household. One service that might benefit your household is Surfshark. Surfshark VPN is a service that lets you mask your location. Sometimes you may want to appear as if your device is in another location, and a VPN is an effective way to do that. Maybe you're trying to access a resource from your university, but you can't access it because your device is currently in a different region. This is a case where Surfshark VPN could come in handy. Another case would be where you're using your device on public Wi-Fi. Maybe you're concerned about your data not being secure? You can help secure your data by using a VPN. Surfshark also helps you get the best deals online by removing location-based prices. Surfshark has a special offer for viewers of this channel, an 83% discount along with 3 extra months for free. If you want to take advantage of this offer, head over to surfshark.deals/chemist. That's surfshark.deals/chemist. I want to thank Surfshark for their support of this channel. So we still have a few household chemicals here, and one of those chemicals is borax. I've really simplified the structure here so it's just clear, but borax is more complex than this. There's like a bunch of water around, and the structure isn't super clear here. One of the main uses for borax at home is for the treatment of ants. The cool thing about borax is once ants find it, they think it's sugar, so they'll just like take it and bring it back to their colony, and then the ants will eat it, and then they'll die, and then the ants will eat that ant, and it'll just like keep pushing its way forward. So for ant control, it's pretty useful. Additionally, it's used in some laundry and household cleaning products. So borax is pretty useful, especially because we hate ants. So ants start with an A. We can put this right into A tier. Another one that we see in dishwasher detergent is sodium percarbonate. This is like peroxide, except again, we have a white powder. We could just transfer it really easily. Usually you don't have combinations of this one and sodium dichloroisocyanurate in the same product because these will neutralize each other, just like bleach will neutralize hydrogen peroxide, something you want to avoid. But sodium percarbonate is nice also because it's basic. So here, because this is basic, it can help remove some of the layers of the glass. So what essentially happens is you form a basic piranha solution. Instead of sulfuric acid, we have base. And this will help remove some layers of glass. And that could be an effective way to remove stuff that's stuck to glass. So the advantage of it being something that kills stuff, it also helps oxidize stuff, and it's basic, it's pretty useful. I think percarbonate can probably go also into A tier. Sodium dodecyl sulfate. This is a common detergent that you see in a lot of soaps, although there are other sulfates that exist. Quite often you see mixtures of sulfates nowadays, not just sodium dodecyl sulfate, but you usually see a variety of them. Occasionally they also have analogs of sulfates where you don't have the oxygen, it's just directly connected to the sulfur. And soap is essential. You have to have clean hands. Because this is so useful and soap matters so much, I think we could put this right into S tier. If you don't think you've been washing your hands enough, start doing it. The easiest way to prevent illness is to wash your hands, so make sure you do a good job when you wash your hands. So we have 2 left, hydrogen peroxide and methyl cyanoacrylate. So methyl cyanoacrylate is an example of an acrylate ester. The cool thing about cyanoacrylates is that they're found in superglue or crazy glue or other glue products that rapidly harden. Now the reason for this is we have this double bond here which really likes to polymerize really easily. All it takes is a little bit of exposure to air and light and this will just start going. So it's really effective in superglue for this exact reason. I don't remember the last time I needed superglue around the house, but I remember when I was growing up we used it like all the time. So superglue is pretty useful. I think we could probably put this into B tier. Hydrogen peroxide is a really useful household chemical for removing stains, for instance. This can be used as a bleach. Additionally, it can be used in hair bleach. You also occasionally see hydrogen peroxide used to clean wounds, although there's several options available for the treatment of wounds. So for that reason, I think hydrogen peroxide is fairly useful. I think we can put it into A tier. So hopefully you've enjoyed this tier list. If you like these videos, make sure you subscribe and click that bell, and I hope you have a great day.